Okay, Richard from Sharpshooting UK here. This is my RPA Quadlite. I've bedded it into this stock myself. IOR 6-24, separate review on that. The story here is that this is one of the new Sassen Border barrels from the UK. This is a 223 AI. I got the reamer from Dave Manson, which has produced exactly the measurements I wanted. Basically for a long throat to suit the 80 grain AMAX and the 77 grain Sierra Match King. I'm not worried about mag length, anything like that, because it's single shot, so I can have them as long as I want. I also don't need to shoot anything light and fast through this gun because I've got other calibers for that. So this is just fast twist, long pills, and what I'm going to show you now is how I go about load developing in any new rifle. I have a system that is completely standard now. That is zero the rifle with a safe charge of something, get it on the paper. It takes a few shots, then clean it. That's all the running I do with a match barrel. That gets rid of the copper that has accumulated on the new lead, and once that's done, that's your lot. So I do that. Then I look at optimum charge weights, having compared my bullet and particularly my barrel length against powder fully burnt in quick load. You really want to be burning all of your powder in your barrel length. If you want good velocities in a short barrel, you have to use a fast powder, and it's pointless using a slow powder because it's not burnt by the end of the tube. If you've got a longer barrel, you can run a slower powder. So quick load tells you very accurately what will burn, what's the right sort of ballpark powder wise for your caliber. And of course you've got anecdotal evidence from friends. It's worth noting that I don't worry about the nth degree of fine-tuning when I'm doing the seating in a new barrel. It is a waste of time because after 100 rounds, one, your brass is once fired, which is a big difference. If you're fire forming, then of course that's, you know, a variable there, and also the barrel will always what we call slick up. Might not necessarily get faster actually, but it runs in. So you will need to tweak your load after you've fired all your brass. So what I'm getting at is don't throw your life away loading with a new barrel and new brass, because they're two big variables, and you can get the load good, but don't obsess until you've fired all your brass once. Then you can really guarantee continuity going forwards, and you can really load that killer load, and then that should last hundreds of rounds before any other factors start to become a problem. Brass prep notwithstanding. So having got an idea of the sort of powders you're looking at from quick load, given your barrel length and your bullet weight, you then start your load development. Now what I do is look for POI stability using the optimum charge weight principle, which essentially means loading powder charges as normal at your guesstimated seating depth. So if you want to load 10th thou out of the lands, then so be it. If you want to run SAMI spec because of you want to stick to what's well known and guaranteed safe, then you go to SAMI length, whatever. But at your given fixed length for now, you do your powder charge. And what I'm looking for, as per a previous video on this principle that I've done on Sharpshooting UK's channel, is not necessarily accuracy. Really, you're not looking for the tightest accuracy. You're looking for the groups that are dead stable for POI, plus and minus of that point. I'll show you when I've shot the targets. You also want to run all this over the crony and check that your velocities are in the ballpark. If they're not in the ballpark, you need a new powder. So what we're doing is we're looking what I call coarse tuning and fine tuning. We're doing coarse tuning, which is various powders of various weights to see which is stable for POI and in the ballpark for velocity. Part 2 is to fine tune that with seating. I will show you the groups when I've shot them, and we'll go through that then. Okay, so clearly I made a good guess with regard to the seating depth, because the optimum charge weight loads are very accurate. So you can see the groups are good. There's 22.5. The POI is consistently a minute high. That's only because I don't want to shoot the bull out. I need to aim at it. And a nudge to the left from there on. So if I were choosing OCW for fine tuning now, regardless of group size, I would be, well, they're all good, aren't they? So I'd probably go 22.3, 22.2 would do, and then I can tune that into a single hole. Not that I'm going to do that right now, because this group here will do nicely for fireforming. Speeds are fantastic, so as a fireforming load, just to run the brass through, that'll do nicely at this current seating depth. But when I get everything settled, I'll fine tune for seating, and you'll see the groups will improve. Then I went to 530 instead of 135. Everything else the same. Again, 21.4 there, 21.7, 22 is tiny, 22.3 is tiny. So again, nice and stable, good accuracy, killer speeds. I've kind of hit the ground running here, just running through rough powder charges at 10th how off the lands. So the stability there in these last two is just obviously dead center, which is fine. That one's dead center, that one's a bit right. So I would be looking at the optimum charge weight being 22.2, somewhere along here. And that's dead stable if the temperature's cooler, which is the equivalent of 22 grains. And it's stable if the temperature goes up, which is more powder. So 22.1, 22.2 would be my optimum charge weight there, and I would then look to tune accuracy with seating. Not that it's much needed. Very gusty right to left here today. These are all, well, you can see they're tiny little groups. Only 3 shots. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just trying to get the gun lined up, you know, looking for stability. Then I switched to 80s, 80 AMAX, and you could see again they shoot well. Powder is not quite as stable for them. First group's a nudge right, second group's central, and then third group, unfortunately I did pull that, but that looks to be a nudge right as well. So the optimum charge weight there isn't as good. I wouldn't settle on that powder. I would certainly test more, because that moving left to right will kill you at long range. Another example where the groups aren't so good, but that should not worry you. This is Elco 17 with the 80 AMAX. And what we've got here is right, central, right, right, repeat again, right, right and right. Now that is a powder I would proceed with. Even though the accuracy is poor, that's of no concern. We'll soon nip that up with seating. That OCW is lovely. Apart from that first one there, the low one, which is interestingly is the most accurate, disregard that, because that is right. Then that's center, then right, right, right and right. See how they're always in the same place. So that means that I could pick a node in there and go for it. As they're all right, I'd go high up because I'm going to get the speed, so I'd choose, say, 25.8, and I would then do seating tuning there.
Okay, as a matter of interest, this is where I keep all my notes. I've got here noted right at the beginning of the life of the rifle the length to the lands with the two main bullets. I then keep them and repeat the test carefully throughout the life of the bullet. Various other photos from other people to get me started. Then these early fire-forming load tests for powder, which you've already seen. N135, 530, inseparable from the beginning. Didn't bother with N140 in the end. 80 AMAX as we come down the page. Notes about speeds and pressures. H322 I didn't show you, that was a powder that didn't look good, didn't proceed with it. Elco 17. And then lines across the page here, major change over to AI. So we've now fire formed our brass, we've got more capacity, and things are settling down by now. The brass has all been fired, the barrels had 150 rounds through it, so now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. You can see here that I used a hotter charge of M135, and again OCW is absolutely OCW, stability. It's just flawless. High and left, 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 high and left. I mean, it's very rare you get groups like that from a rifle and a powder. This is a very steady combo. I'm very, very pleased with it. Accuracy is one thing, but I don't think it's that hard to find. I think what's really worth having is stability and consistency in your rig, and this Sassen Border is really, really something. So you can see on that I've got 24.1. Crony played up there. I didn't get the results, but 25 is nice. Again, I tested 530. The page got very wet because it rained, but again we're looking at dead stable and good groups. Crony played up, so I repeated. Oh, there's some Elco 17 as well, a hotter charge. That's looking crazy good. N135 a little hotter still because I felt that I could go up still. The pressure was fine. Quick load was telling me that I was able to go up a bit more, so I went up another half a grain, I think it was. Ended up just over 3k here with this 25.7 group. 3010, 3012, 3014. So, almost a single hole group. Again, there are only 3 shots. I'm still developing, but we could see some very impressive looking accuracy here with wide nodes. I like to have what I call plus minus, and I get into that in a little bit. But yeah, 25.7 is looking good. That is 135, and then here 530 again. Few feet per second faster, real good again. So I'm actually at this point struggling to tell 135 apart from 530, and what I always do in a situation like that where it's real close is I go out to longer range and I start to lean on the load a bit more to see which is really better. You can tell so much more at 300 yards than you ever can at 100. Trying to tell the difference between a raggy hole at 100 and a cloverleaf is academic. At 300, one of them will be better.
I had got some very exciting looking results at 100, some tiny little clover leaves. But I still hadn't tested seating, and as accurate as the load was and consistent in my testing for powder and optimum charge rate, I can never quite settle until I've gone a bit shorter and a bit longer to see how big the sweet spot is. Have I got to load that bullet to exactly a thou? Or 2 or 3 plus and minus would be nice? How fussy is the pill? And today I went out to, and also when the gun's very, very, very accurate, you really need to get further out to tell things apart. So I went out to 350 today, but the wind got up a bit, and well, I didn't shoot the best groups of my life. I shot some half-inch, but generally I was shooting about an inch. What I could conclude, though, and this is an interesting lesson about load development, you're not necessarily looking for the best groups of your life, although you are at the very final stage. But in the processes, you're primarily making decisions between one thing and another. So my point is that if I could only shoot an inch at 350 today, that's not relevant. What's relevant is that as I change the seating depth, and I change the seating depth 40 thou, none of the groups opened up dramatically past that inch. So that means that, yes, I couldn't shoot better than an inch at 350 today because of this swirly wind that came up and was very difficult to call. It was sort of 7 o'clock, sort of just, to my side behind me. And it was different at the target, sort of between 3 and sort of 8 or 9 miles an hour, very difficult to call. And that can move you about. So you're not going to shoot the best groups of your life. But if one of the seating nodes that I'd used was really bad, which is often the case, it would have shot 3 inches, 4 inches. So even though it wasn't record-breaking, although it was solid enough, I can now be sure that I'm not fussy in the load, the seating to, a thou or two. I know that even if I'm 5 thou shorter, I'm still cooking with gas, because those went really, really well. In fact, 5 thou shorter might have been the tightest of the day. So, I know the plus and minus, as I call it. Another important part of getting to know your new barrel is not just accuracy, little things like, when you clean it, will it require a fouling shot? Now, match barrels do much less, but they still may. It's actually one of the main reasons I got into match barrels. Not necessarily because I wanted more accuracy. I was doing well at the time with what I had at the ranges I was shooting. The reason I went to a match barrel is because I wanted to be able to clean and know the first shot would be much closer. Because my barrel, it was a good barrel, accuracy-wise, but it used to throw 2 fouling shots a minute off. And that was a headache. So, as a matter of interest, before this tuner test here, but after the seating test, where I fired a lot of rounds, I thought I'd give the barrel a quick clean, just to see. I got nothing out of it. It was fine, but I needed to know, would I get any copper out, etc., etc. But it was immaculate. Got a bit of carbon out, obviously. But then I started this test, and this 1/4 inch 200-yard group here includes the first shot. Now, whether part of that is because of my HBN regimen, who knows? But bottom line, this barrel is not throwing a flyer, even at 200 yards, even with a 1/4 minute group, after being scrubbed right clean. So that's worth knowing. It's one more thing to know as you get going after rebarreling.
So if you're very lucky, you've got a very stable barrel, nicely bedded, the right powder, and exactly the right bullet, everything just optimal. What you're hoping to see is a page like this, where you've got a string of little tiny groups. Not because one of them is accurate. There is no point loading yourself up what I would call a knife edge load that is so fickle and so unrepeatable that it's just academic. And a lot of folks will load a good load and then they'll go, right, that's me, and then they'll just stop looking at it and hope that it stays that way, which it surely won't. temperature changes, brass changes, neck tension changes, seating changes, and it goes off. What you need is stability and tolerance and wide nose. So it isn't always that easy. You often have to pick maybe plus or minus 0.2 of a grain, and you should just perfectly fine. And same with seating. If you get plus or minus 3 thou of seating tolerance, then that's fine. This isn't the best rifle for this how-to video because it's so stable and the barrel's so good. But you can see the principles at work. You're looking for stability. You're looking for wide nodes. And if it sprays all over the paper, you've got the wrong powder. If the velocity is wrong, completely out of the ballpark, then you've got the wrong powder. If you've got disproportionately high pressures or low pressures and you've got soot all down the side of your cases and the necks aren't opening up properly, then you've got the wrong powder. And I think one of the reasons I really hit the ground running here is with using quick load. It really does save you a lot of time and money, especially with the price of powder.